One. It is Tuesday, April 1st, 2025. The time is 7:00 p.m. I'm John Dwanzik, and this is the regular meeting of the Avon Lake Board of Municipal Utilities. With me tonight are fellow board members, Mr. Ricky, Mrs. Schnabel, Mr. Mondello, and Mr. Rush. Also with us here tonight is Chief Utilities Executive, Mr. Monroe, Chief of Utility Operations, Mr. Urinich, and Business and Financial Coordinator, Mr. Logan. Also at the table is outside counsel, Mr. Coyne, and we do have a representative from the Avon Lake Police Department in the audience. Tonight's meeting is being live streamed on Facebook and YouTube. We're starting at 7:00 because we had a work session before this meeting that started at 6:00. So we took a quick break and starting again now with the regular meeting. We do have a full board tonight. It takes 3 affirmative votes for any motion to pass. All votes are taken by voice vote with the exception of a motion to go into executive session, one of which is indicated tonight on the agenda, which will be done by a roll call vote. There's an opportunity for public input if you were in the room or watching the live stream. On the live stream, you would go into the comments section and enter your comment by text. Mr. Urinich will be monitoring that and let me know at the appropriate time and read the remarks, if any. I want to point out that although it is April 1st, we will not make any April Fool's jokes without indicating that they're jokes immediately adjacent to the joke. So everything else we're saying is straight. And I think, Mr. Rush, I have covered everything that I'm supposed to. Okay. April 1st is not as funny as it used to be. The world is crazy enough. So we've got the call to order done. The next item is the approval of minutes from the March 18th meeting. Are there any member comments on those minutes? Mr. Ricky.
You know, and I'm a little remiss because I don't have my expense sheets for last meeting, but the $490,000 for ETL2, what happened? Is that a payment, or this is not on the expenses now? This is on, it's recorded ETL2 Fund 762, $490,000.
Yeah, that's an expense. That's for ETL2 paying for their water. So it's an expense to Avon Lake.
But it doesn't show up on every expense report, does it?
No, it's only once a month.
Once a month, so
Yeah, they get billed
every
once a
other
month.
time it'll
Correct.
show up as big. So that's
Correct.
why, because like this month it's $5,000. You know, it's very minimal.
The expense Mr. Monroe is referring to isn't in there.
Yeah.
On these expenses.
Gotcha.
It's a large number each.
Gotcha. Okay. It just seemed extraordinarily large to me this time. So that's the only question I had on the old minutes.
Okay, anyone else with comments? All right, hearing no further comments, they are approved as submitted and noted. Next item is public speakers. Mr. Urinich, do we have anyone in cyber world that has any comments?
No comments
Thank you.
today, Mr. Chairman.
We will move then to correspondence. Mr. Monroe.
I have no correspondence to pass along this evening.
We're moving right along now, like a baseball game, onto item number 3, expenditures. On your goldenrod sheets, would someone like to make the motion to approve those? Mr. Ricky.
I move that we approve the expenses for March 14th through March 27th, 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Ricky. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Schnabel. Any discussion?
I do have a question.
Mr. Mondello.
It's throughout all the funds here, but if you just look at the first page, line 44, Lemon for social media management. Is this a quarterly payment?
No, that's monthly. That's our monthly payment.
Okay, so
for-
3,500 a month.
Yeah.
What exactly, are they managing on the social media side for?
So our contract, we've been with them now, I believe this is our second year. So prior to them, we did not have anyone that managed it. We did have an employee. And we had a community outreach services position. And so when that person left, it was a part-time position. They took a full-time position elsewhere. That was when we made the decision, instead of refilling that position, we outsourced that. So they handle 3 or 4 posts per week. They handle, like, for instance, Mr. Urnich has been working on the bill insert that goes in with our quarterly residential bills. They help us with drafting those, any news releases.
They posting these, like, the videos and everything?
Yes, like staff introduction videos that we do. They do all of the video editing, and it's all inclusive of that price.
Mr. Mandela, just for my reference, what number was that?
Just look on the first page, line 44.
Okay, thank you. That's fine. I just
and
want to
40
make sure
for
that
Fund 723.
40. All right, thank you. Any other comments from the board? I do have a question about number 28 on Fund 723 Core and Main. What are these clamps, the ones that are being used over in the extension of the water line over in the Walker Road Park? A lot of clamps.
Mr. Urnich? I believe that those are, I don't know 100%, but if I were to guess, I would say that those are re-upping our inventory of repair clamps on the shelf.
Okay.
I believe the parts you're referring to at Walker Road Park were paid out of the construction fund. So these, since they're paid out of the general fund of the distribution, to me, because it says 23 in parentheses, so it indicates to me that there's 23 clamps that they bought, which would be
I should say.
an inventory restock.
Okay. Okay, anybody else? All in favor of the motion to approve, say aye.
Aye.
The expenses are approved. All right, next item is the Sheffield, Rural Lorraine, Avon Lake Regional Water Agreement. Mr. Monroe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was an item that we did discuss in our work session before this meeting. And just to give a general recap, what this is an amendment to our water purchase agreement. It's currently a 3-way agreement between us, Rural Lorraine County Water Authority, and the Village of Sheffield. It's an agreement that is 30 plus years old. When an original agreement was written, we sell the water to Rural Lorraine at the Miller Road Pump Station. It goes through their pipes that they own, and Sheffield Village connects in Sheffield to Rural's pipe. So it's kind of a complicated agreement that it's unnecessary that really we're involved in the agreement. So that agreement expires, I believe actually it expired yesterday. And Rural Lorraine County Water Authority and Sheffield Village are going to work out an agreement amongst themselves, and they asked for a 6-month extension. Since we're a party to that, and this is an amendment to that agreement, it would be necessary for us to authorize that as well. Rural Lorraine County Water Authority's board and the Village of Sheffield have already approved this amendment. So I do have a recommended motion to approve this amendment number 2 to the water purchase agreement.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Monroe. Would someone like to make the motion?
I can read it.
Mrs. Schnabel.
I move to authorize the CUE to execute amendment number 2 to water purchase agreement between Rural Lorraine County Water Authority, the Village of Sheffield, and Avon Lake Regional Water as presented.
Thank you, Mrs. Schnabel. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Rush. Further discussion? I do have a question. Will we, at the time they enter into their new agreement, will we sunset this with another board action?
I will have to check on that, to see
Okay.
if that would be necessary or not.
It seems like probably we should,
That was my question.
Yeah, to memorialize it.
right? Okay, any other remarks from the board? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, now we have a couple of items with regard to personnel. Senior operator, water filtration plant, Mr. Urinich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So going back in history a little bit, when Jason Gibney came here as our water filtration plant manager, we did lose our senior operator who left to take the position vacated by Mr. Gibney. We wanted to give kind of the new employees existing at the water plant some time to kind of get settled, really get a feel for things. We have had the senior operator position vacant for the last 2 years. We had posted internally for that. We felt that's a position that's important, that comes from somebody that knows the plant, all of its workings. We had the applicant, Mr. Brandon Brown. He's really been going above and beyond, what you would expect from your operators. So he was going to be moving into that position. He will be starting at senior operator step 4. That equates to $35.86 per hour. And that took effect March 24th of 2025.
Okay, so we don't have any motion to do there or anything like that. And Mr. Brown is not an additional employee. Are we leaving some other job untended, or is it he just carry that responsibility with him?
One of the duties of the senior operator is to fill in as needed. Once we get another operator that takes his place in the rotation, he will move full-time into the senior operator role. We wanted to give him a chance to kind of learn some of those duties that the senior op will do that he can work on when he has time.
Okay, and then what's Mr. Brown's level of licensure?
At class 3.
Class 3. So that's pretty senior.
In the senior operator position, when that was approved, job description was approved back in 2018, 2019, and established. In order to be eligible, you have to have a class 3 license. There is also another caveat to that job, that in order to reach the top step, you have to get a class 4 license. And with that comes obviously the hourly increase of the top step, but also the stipend is currently at, I believe, $3,000 for having a class 4. So it's to incentivize to get to that. I fully feel that Mr. Brown is going to pursue his class 4.
Okay, good. All right, sounds like a win all the way around.
Yes.
Speaking of wins, Mr. Urinich, would you like to give us some project updates
Yes, I just wanted,
and pictures?
no pictures for the first one. This is for the power plant update, but I just wanted to update the board that they did come in and fill out the paperwork for their demolition permit. As they get to the point of really tearing down that final front facade, I'm going to be pulling the water meter, cutting and capping the water and the sewer connections. So they are aware of all those requirements. They know that it needs to be inspected before they fill everything back in, but they're going to be performing that work within a week or so.
Great. Mr. Chairman, I would just like to expand on that regarding the demolition permit, because there were others in the community that questioned why they did not have a demolition permit when they were demolishing buildings over there. And that's because they still had an active sanitary connection and a water connection that they were using. Once they reached the point that they are not using those any longer, they're required to get a demolition permit from us. And they paid their fee. They were issued the permit. We inspect, that's part of our cost of our fee. We actually visibly inspect that. So I just wanted to state that for the record. As we have monitored it all along, when the time was appropriate, they were required to get their demolition permit.
Right, but as far as the structures go, that would still be a permit from the city of Avon Lake.
Correct, correct. Our demolition permit is just because they're no longer needing the sanitary sewer and the water connections. And at that site, there were multiple, so.
And I presume that, all the requisite notices to the interested parties will be given sufficiently in advance for whatever, measures they would like to take.
That information was passed along to the city.
Thank you. All right, any other questions on that? Okay, go ahead with your updates.
Okay, for the ETL design services, the updated legal descriptions and proposed easements are complete, and letters to the property owners were mailed out March 27th. Attorney Connie Carr is handling those communications with the property owners. First Energy does own a majority of the parcels where the temporary and permanent easements are required, and that process is underway with them as well.
Okay, does the closing of Moore Road have any connection to this?
No, that was, from my understanding, was just the railroad doing maintenance at the tracks. It had nothing to do with this.
Okay.
Moving on to the water filtration plant improvements and the pictures. So this is the current state of the new chemical feed building. This is the final portion of the vertical support columns. They're going to be placing a temporary work area at the top. The last thing to pour and form is going to be the horizontal roof support structures. So the building is almost at its final height. This picture was taken looking east from the top of our flocculation and sedimentation basins. So it does surpass the height of the structure that's already there. Looking to the east, you can see the water tower that serves the water plant for filter washes for the time being. It's just a view from ground level looking at the chemical feed building. Moving on to the new filter area. In this picture, you can see that they've placed the rebar, what will be the base slab of the bottom floor of the new filter area. I didn't get a chance to get a picture, but today they did pour the concrete for that base slab. So that building is coming along. I think that's...
Mr. Rush?
The wrap pipe, what exactly is that?
So that is the orthophosphate line that still feeds into the line going to the clear wells across the street. Due to the cold weather, it required some heat trace and insulation to be wrapped around it while it's exposed. Once the filter expansion is complete, that'll be housed internally and heat will be taken care of by the building. That was just something to protect it during construction. All right. Moving on to the SCADA communication upgrade. This was an area we kind of wanted to, I guess, clear up some confusion. I had kind of added a separate project into this topic. This had originally started when we had experienced the, I guess, kind of the network overload with some fiber optic converters. All the equipment that had led to that scenario has been upgraded, replaced, and we have alleviated that concern. In the fall or later this summer, we'll be looking at starting a new project for the new server room. That was one of the things that, although that didn't contribute to the initial problem, that's something that we've looked at as part of our capital improvements, that we want to create that dedicated server room and really get that system housed in a proper area, adding the HVAC, the dedicated air controls for that. That cannot take place until we have moved the chemical feed systems that are currently housed in the area where we'll be constructing that server room. So for the SCADA communication upgrade, at this point, we're going to close out that project. Once we progress with the new chemical feed building and get some of that equipment moved, we will introduce that as a separate project. Is there any questions about that?
Go on.
All right, moving on to the TechWin project. We're working with TechWin and the insurance company. There was some minor damage to that equipment during shipping. Jason and our water filtration plant manager and the facilities and asset manager have been working with the insurance adjuster on that and TechWin. They're coming up with a plan of how they're going to address those repairs. And then we can work on getting their site visit scheduled for the startup. As far as the electrical equipment that we had on order, majority of that has arrived, and they're looking at starting to install that the week of April 7th.
Okay, questions, Mr. Sean?
No.
Okay. All right, anything else, Mr. Uranich?
That's all I have for now, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, time for the CUE report, Mr. Monroe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one item to report on this evening. Next week, I will be in Washington, D.C. On my efforts with the Water Utility Council in Ohio. I am the vice chair. This is when we will be meeting with our legislators regarding the issues that are important to all water utilities in Ohio. But fortunately, I am the relationships that I have made with some of our legislators there, also able to schedule individual meetings for topics that are specific for and important for Avon Lake Regional Water. Currently have a group meeting and a individual meeting scheduled with Senator Marino, and a group meeting scheduled with Senator Husted. Also, Congressman Latta, I have an individual meeting scheduled with him as well. And just as a note, he had met with our colleagues at the Cleveland Water Alliance a few weeks ago, and they were talking about a lot of the work that they've done. And our TechWin project was a major topic of discussion. So we will have follow-up conversations with Congressman Latta, who supports that project and the far-reaching implications it could have for our region. So I look forward to the busy few days there, but very worthwhile to represent our interests in Washington. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Monroe. How about members with individual reports? Mr. Ricky?
Yes, I met with Mr. Gadar and reviewed the invoices for the emergency repair on Walker Road, and got answered some questions that I had. So I met with him, and then next Thursday, and I don't know the date off the top of my head, but next Thursday will be the Lorco meeting, and I do at this point plan on going down to Lorco for that meeting.
Appreciate that, Mr. Ricky. Anyone else? I would only report that I guess between this meeting and the last one, I met in here with Mr. Monroe to review the plans for the expansion and modification of this building. We came up with some new ideas and concepts, and that should be moving along fairly soon.
I provided those comments to our project manager, and I met with him Thursday last week, and I would expect sometime this week he'll have the updated revisions for us to share.
Okay, very good. That's all I have. Anyone else? Last call. All right, Mr. Uranich, public speakers, do we have any?
There are not any comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. And then that brings us to the request for an executive session. Mr. Monroe?
Yes, based on our discussion in the executive session, we want to discuss compensation of a public employee and pending or imminent court action. But based on that discussion, the board may take formal action when we reconvene the public meeting.
Okay, and that part of the public meeting will not be live streamed. There'll be, I presume, a considerable interruption in between this part of the meeting and the closing of it after the executive session. Minutes will be recorded
Correct.
and published when appropriate. Okay, having addressed all of that, we have a recommended motion. Would someone like to make it?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Rush.
I move to meet in executive session as allowed by Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22, G1 and G3, to discuss the compensation of a public employee and pending or imminent court action, and to include the CUE, the CUO, the Business and Financial Coordinator, and a representative from Manzer Gavin.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Ricky. We'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Mondello?
Aye.
Mrs. Schnabel?
Yes.
Mr. Ricky?
Yes.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Chairman votes yes. We will go into executive session when the room is cleared. Thank you, everyone in the audience via the internet, and we will see you again in 2 weeks.